Thanks for everyone to be here. It's a pleasure to have so many people with us today. The point of this webinar is for us to share with all of you the current progress of our Textile Revalorisation Pathway Explorer, its development and the next steps, which involves the pilot users. It's Techtera's team. It's Clara, Arthur, Charlotte, and myself. So before we talk about the tool, I'm going to talk to you about the SOLSTICE project, which is the context in which you are carrying this work of the tool. So it's a European project to develop 5R solutions for circular textile economy.
I can't hear anything.
Okay.
Do
you have more people having sound problem? Okay. Okay, no. Okay, great. Thanks. Well, let's continue, and I hope you can fix your problem. So yes, about SOLSTICE. So it's a quite big European project. It's a Circular Cities Horizon Europe project. It's spanning all over Europe, as you can see on the right map. We are 24 partners. It consists of many tasks, but the concept is to work on 4 EU living laboratories based on 4 territories, so Grenoble in France, Prato in Italy, Catalonia in Spain, and Berlin in Germany. It focuses on how to foster the 5R approaches: refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, repurpose, and recycle. And it has a specific focus on 5 key materials: chemical recycling, so polyester, polyamide, polyurethane, and elastane. When it comes to the recycling, the final R. This is a quite big project. Many tasks are ongoing at the moment. And Techtera, our organization, is one of the partners of this project. So a few words about who we are and what we do. Techtera, we are an innovation cluster for the French textile industry. So we are based in Lyon, France. We represent a network of 282 members of diverse forum companies, textile SMEs, textile mid-caps. We include research labs, technical centers, universities, and schools. And our objective is to foster collaborative innovation within our ecosystem based on 3 strategic areas: bio-based and circular economy, intelligent and high-performance material, and the digitalization in manufacturing process. So this is our day-to-day activity. But within SOLSTICE, we carry 3 specific tasks. The first one being to develop and to disseminate a viability business model assessment tool. We are also in charge of the management of the stakeholder advisory board and project results replication. So regarding this viability assessment tool, we basically leverage on the work that we started doing in 2021 and 2022 on a national project where we built an Excel file, a prototype on how to model and simulate the cost of recycling, from the sorting to chemical recycling of polyester. It was a narrower scope than SOLSTICE. It was only focusing on one material, on a fewer step and a more restricted numbers of actors. But our objective with SOLSTICE is to broaden this perimeter, to go broader in terms of the material and in terms of features. We decided to take a step back from this prototype and to take the opportunity of the SOLSTICE project to look at the challenges of the ecosystem. Through a series of webinars, of in-person meetings, we look at what might seem obvious to you, because you might be you are probably very aware of these points, but we wanted to grasp more the essence of what are the key challenges of the 5R ecosystem today. So a few of them that we saw that as the key challenges are here. The first one being the post-consumer valorization becoming more complex. with increasing quality, traceability, and regulatory requirements. The mismatch in terms of supply and demand, as recycler needs, or revalorizer in general, need specific materials, but often the feedstock doesn't meet the exact standard in terms of quantity or quality. This leads to the rising role of the intermediary transformation actors, the material preparer, who try to bridge this gap. And what we've noticed is that there is a limitation of the existing tools today in terms of the ability to simulate and optimize the transformation scenario. We see the demand, we see probably the supply, but how can we bridge the gap? And overall, we see a rather fragile textile value chain that needs to be structured beyond experimentation approach. We also wanted, of course, to cover the expected benefits of the people we've met during this process. And so we've gathered a few key expectations here. The first one being the need for bridging the gap between sorters and recyclers with clear material description. The fact that it's quite important to identify diverse valorization paths, not to focus on one single valorization, but to secure multiple valorization options for feedstock holders. Also, we're looking at the other perspective to allow to have a better visibility on what's available in terms of post-consumer textile batches feedstock. From the valorizer, it's also important to enhance the market confidence, supporting the risk reduction, and to make sure that one can be able to make investment decisions with more confidence. And all this thanks to more collaboration and resource sharing. So to incorporate these aspects, these learnings, we wanted to rephrase our value proposition in a short proposal. We want to make a decision-making tool to help set up and ensure new value chain viability between revalorizers and holders of consumer textile feedstock, with a simulation engine and a structured reference system for characterizing materials. Who can benefit from this? Basically, we simplified in four key users, users of the tool that could that we want to address in the development. There will be on one side the resource holders, who are the actors who provide access to feedstocks, for example, sorting center management, recovery center. On the other hand, you have the valorizers, which could be a recycling business engineer, a second-hand store manager, an upcycler, a repairer. In between, you have the rising role of the intermediary player, the one who focuses on material transformation, material preparation. And on the side, you have the territorial operator, whose role is to initiate, incentivize at territory level, wants to could be able to look at all this relationship and boost the circularity in its territory. How do we want to address their needs? We've narrowed down our development around a few features, and the one that we showed here are the main three features that we find are kind of the building blocks of our tool. The first one being the ability to have a uniform characterization of the feedstock and the ability to visualize feedstock based on key dimensions. You could be using this feature as a feedstock holder, but also as a valorizer. I will look at it in more detail later. The second feature is the ability to craft a transformation pathway. The creation of a path from your feedstock to the expectation of a valorizer by selecting or creating new transformation steps. We'll look at it later, what it means exactly. And the third feature is the ability to assess the economical and technological impact of a selected pathway by allocating resources to each steps. This will allow you to test your ability to answer a new valorization specification and to find compromise between downstream and upstream partners. So let's now look at the first key feature. This is the ability to have this uniform characterization of feedstock and to make sure that different actors can speak basically the same language. And we want to help talk along three primary dimensions: material, format, condition. We've also considered color, but as it is not a requirement in the SOLSTICE project, we put it a bit later in our development roadmap. Let's look now in more detail about this feature, thanks to Arthur.
Thanks. So, hi, I'm Arthur, and I'm a designer and developer here at Techtera. So, like Juliette said, we've been working on the tool for a few months, and I'm going to share some screenshots showing where we're at. Keep in mind, it's very much still a work in progress, so it will change. The finished tool might look very different from what you see today, and it's also imperfect. That's why it needs feedback, so we'll get back to that later. I don't want to be too technical, and I'll try and stay high level, but I'll be available to answer your questions after if you want. Also, you can use the chat maybe if you want to ask questions. So we'll be showing a variety of elements, working prototypes, mock-up, ideas, and I'll try and be clear on what we're showing you at each time. So here we have a screenshot of our working prototype with some added information in orange on overlay. So the user here is thought to be a sorting center manager. We can see they have 3 batches that are defined. To get the user started, we provide a generic batch distribution that relies on a 2023 refashion study, but they can adjust this distribution if they have better data. In the future, we can imagine having a few different generic distributions according to geographical or seasonal data, for example. Users can also describe a batch from scratch by defining each dimension successively. On the right-hand side, we can see the distribution along the materials dimension. We can see the amount of each material and each fiber, plus the total volume of a given batch. We can also see that batches can be sorted according to different factors, like are they an input batch, targeted output, or a byproduct of the process. So next, we can see how a user might specify their needs. This part is not yet including in the working prototype, but it's in our very close roadmap. The aim is for the users to be able to describe their needs along the same dimensions as how the batches were described earlier. So, for example, in terms of materials, I want anything that contains more than 60% cotton, but under 4% elastan, for example. Or in terms of format, I want shredded fabric. And obviously, these dimensions, these constraints will be combined. So this is what will enable us to match potential feedstocks with needs in the future.
Yes, so now that we've built the fundamental for the tool, which is being able to see clearly who has what and who needs what, let's define the second feature. It's to be able to create a pathway of transformation. So this is a very schematic approach of the tool to show you that you'll be able to apply sorting, cutting, transformation, other transformations, as well as logistics, in order to really go from your existing feedstock to the targeted valorization specification. That's the objective of this secondary feature.
So let's see how this is translated into the platform. Again, this is a screenshot straight from our working prototype. You can see in the center a series of transformations that have been applied to a chosen batch. Here, the chosen batch is called refashion standard at the top. We consider a transformation any step that is applied to a batch, so sorting, cleaning, cutting, and so on. For example, cutting is a transformation that happens on the format dimension, and it transforms plain cloth into shredded fabric. So it's a translation in this dimension, let's say. Each transformation has an input batch, a target batch, what we actually want to get out of this transformation, and a co-product batch, that is what is left after this transformation. And you can see that on the left, the right-hand side sidebar. Transformations can then be characterized in terms of cost, time, tools used, yield, and so on, so that they can be integrated into an overall calculation that we'll see later. We also plan to provide a library of standard transformations and resources with standard values that users can use in their workflows and that they can adapt to their needs.
Building on this second feature, we now have the third key feature, which is the ability to assess the impact of a selected pathway. So the aim is to aggregate along one pathway all the potential costs, all the potential needs of resources in terms of human resources, time, and of course the resulted weight of material that produces this pathway. So once you've selected your pathway from the step 2, you'll be able to evaluate its impact from step 3.
So this shows the high-level view of a workflow, a pathway that includes the transformation steps that we have seen before. We can run the simulation to calculate all the corresponding data. We can see on the right-hand side the target batch with the new distribution. So that's the pop-up. And so this new distribution has been calculated. It derives from the transformations that were applied to the input batch. At the top of the sidebar, we can see the corresponding data in terms of total yield, estimated cost, estimated human time, estimated machine time, and so on. This last part has not been integrated yet, but is our next big step. And we're still very open in terms of what data we need to provide and what's the best way to show it. Next, what we wanted to show you is this diagram. Obviously, it's an inspirational mock-up. This is not part of the platform yet. We are nowhere there yet, but it's something we are aiming to provide at some point in the future, so users can get an overall view of their processes. So yeah, this is what we use to as a target, basically. So as you can see, we are hard at work developing this tool. The aim is for it to be ready within the next year. We need to make sure the tool is adapted and adopted. We don't want to imagine the user's needs. We want to rely on real field feedback. So that's why we're looking for some pilot users today. The aim is for them to test the tool in the coming month and give feedback, development ideas, and help us prioritize features. So if you're interested, the first thing that will be interesting for you, obviously, is to be able to use the tool. So start modelizing your pathways in your projects. And so this, we hope, is going to help your daily work, and it's going to help you get a better look at internal workflows and streamline your internal processes. So this access will be free for the next 2 years. And in addition to that, we can provide some visibility on a promotional material linked to the Solstice project. Next, Juliette is going to dive deeper into the specific use cases that we're looking for.
Yes, so as Arthur said, we are looking for pilot users that are essential for the development of the tool. We are now going to share with you the priority use cases that we envisage, but these are, let's say, caricatures of use cases, and they need to be based on your needs. We have drafted 6 use cases that map the environment that we want to develop from a different perspective. So we will now go through each of them. There will be a dedicated time later to get all your questions and to answer you as much as possible on these use cases. So the first use case is focusing on the reuse aspect of this project. We want to put ourselves in the shoes of the second-hand store manager. We want to help him ensure the weekly supply of his store from potentially multiple sources. The fact that he needs to secure the availability of garments in terms of types, quantity, and prices. So here the challenge would be really to aggregate multiple feedstock from different sorting centers, different recovery center. So this is a reuse use case. We are happy to develop with you. The second use case is focusing on the recycling aspect. Here we put ourselves in the position of a recycler, somebody who works at a recycling business and wants to confirm the feasibility of his recycling project. He wants to assess the technical and economic suitability of a new source of textile feedstock for his project. So in this use case, the valorizer is the main, let's say, the main player in this use case. But of course, we also need to involve a resource holder and potentially an intermediary player, such as a transformation expert, so somebody who works on material preparation. Third use case is focusing on the repurpose, on the needs of an upcycler. Similar to previous one, but really specifically to the upcycling, which is quite different in terms of technical specification. Let's imagine that you are an upcycler, you want to launch a new capsule collection with upcycled items. You need to ensure your consistency and affordability of the material that you will use for your business model. So here we propose to simulate your needs and to involve a resource holder and an intermediary player if needed. Fourth use case, now we look at the perspective of a resource holder. So for instance, a sorting center, a recovery center, a structure who has post-consumer textile feedstock. And let's say that a new valorizer comes to him and asks to make an experiment. For instance, he needs a ton of prepared material per month. What we want him to estimate is to make sure that he has the sufficient resources to supply the valorizer with the right quantity and the quality, while establishing a fair price for the service that could cover his costs, that could allow to have a good margin. So we will support you with this use case. We need a resource holder who want to simulate such a story, and together with a valorizer and intermediary player. Use case 5 is a little bit similar, but who wants to look at the scenario where you have an existing stream. Let's say that you already commit to selling your material with an existing collaboration. You already have a given volume that every month you sell in a vintage store, for example. But you also want to combine new valorization pathways. You want to diversify your valorization. So the previous one was on a new valorization. Here it's about adding up more valorization. And finally, use case 6 looks at the perspective of a territorial operator who would like to incentivize his ecosystem, who would like to boost the circularity in his territory. So being able to supervise the tool and to be able to boost the communication and collaboration between the different key users in his territory. So those are 6 typical use cases that we need to develop the tool, but it's now for you to express what are your real grounded needs. And so let's take a few minutes to think about what use cases applies more to you. We will also be with you to discuss this in a moment. Just to give you a little bit of visibility of what will come next. Once we've collected your interest, we will have an individual scoping meeting to define together what's the perimeter and objective of your pilot, what you really want to achieve, and to agree on what we can deliver for your use case. To define together the temporality, the timing of the use case, and basically when we can deliver the first testing. There will be a kickoff with all the partners. There will be a data collection session where we will hold a meeting to review the data collected with you, so that we have enough information to launch the test. And then there will be, once we have developed the dedicated functionality for you, we will run the test with you first time, and then potentially a second time to refine the experiment. Concretely, what is expected from a pilot user? Well, it comes with a few hours of involvement. We need at least, let's say, between 4 and 8 hours per month during the experiment to have your involvement in different formats. Could be collaborative workshops, could be user testing sessions, and could be meetings. All of this could be done through Visio. There's no need to be in person in this way of working. There will also be the need to providing field data in advance of meeting when required. And of course, there will be protected mutual confidentiality. We will ensure that the data ownership and protection is guaranteed, and there will be restricted communication about the tool. So let's now answer your questions about this pilot deployments. If you are interested, we will put now a form in the chat, so you can directly answer and feel your interest in which use case relates to you the most directly in the form if you already have an idea. We fixed the deadline of May 12th to collect interest. After that date, we will come back to you and we'll fix in person one-to-one meeting to understand better your needs. But yes, now we have a few minutes to understand your questions about this presentation. Okay, so your first question is about the fact that recyclers, large recyclers, might want sourcing from a single source rather than multiple sources. So, of course, yes, we know that the most simple is to have one single source for a recycler. We just think in terms of potential needs of aggregation. If a recycler wants to simulate his business model on the long run, how would it work if I need X ton of material? We need to ensure that maybe one feedstock won't be enough. So at the territorial level, how to aggregate the volume so that we can supply at a factory scale or at an industrial scale enough feedstock for a given infrastructure, a recycling infrastructure. The second question relates to the potential difficulty to use the tool. So this is exactly what we want to test with you actually in this phase of having pilot users. Well, we want this tool to be as intuitive and ergonomic as let's say as possible. So this is really why we want to have this one-on-one experiments. I don't know if you want to be more precise in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not meant to be used by everyone in a sorting center, for example. We imagine it's going to be used mainly by the center manager, for example. Where maybe there are this is less of a problem, but yeah, as Juliette said, we're trying to make it as easy to use as possible, even though it's quite a complex in what it achieves.
And as we said, it's here still on this page. This tool is a decision-making tool. It's not an operational tool that needs to be run on a daily basis. It's really a tool that will help one actor in the value chain to check if his business model needs refinement, to see when he wants to change a pathway, whether it makes sense to go with such technology or such partner. This is not a day-to-day operating tool.
So in terms of where the data comes from, we, like I said, we're using for the moment, data from a refashion study from 2023 that gives us some kind of a distribution in a standard batch. So, for example, there's that much of 100% cotton, X% of polyester, and so on. But so that's for the standard distribution. We're hoping to have maybe different standard distributions according to geographical data, for example. And also that's one reason why we're looking for pilot users, is to make sure the data that we use for transformations, for example, is as close to the reality as possible. So we are relying on pilot users to provide some of this data for pricing, for example. In terms of geographical regions, we do not have preferences, and actually it would be interesting for us to have a variety of different regions so that we can we can understand how it is used in those different regions, and if there are differences between those regions. So Manuela has a question on the tool flexibility. I mean, it's still very early to talk about that. It still is a prototype, so obviously we are updating it daily. But yeah, this is something really important to take into account, and we don't have a very clear answer for now.
Yeah, for sure there will be a set of transformations that will be already in the platform when we launch it. Then we need to see how we can allow a user to create a new transformation by itself. The point is to make a structure for calculation, and allow the user to be quite autonomous on the simulation. But we need to see how practically this happens, if there is a need for a validation from our side to make sure the calculation makes sense. For instance, we cannot let it completely go wild. So we need to, we'll see more specifically what's the fixed perimeter at the launch of the tool, and how autonomous a user is in terms of creation of data, of course.
So in terms of who would determine the price? Like I said, we would provide some starting data, but in the end, the end user is the one who is going to be able to adapt, to change, to make it fit their own needs, and I imagine that we'll be splitting, for example, if we know that if you use this machine, it takes that much time to cut, for example, that much material, and then you can fit the time to a worker, and then maybe you can say how much you pay your worker in your center, and so what counts is actually the time spent, and so the price will be adapted. In terms of logistics, we understand that it's an important part of the process. We haven't really scratched the surface of that yet, but we were interested in use cases that help us narrow it down, define it, and make it as good as possible.
I want to clarify that we will talk in terms of cost in the tool, and this cost calculation can allow a structure to fixed price for a selling price for his partner. So we will not propose selling price. This is up to your structure to fix what's the objective selling price, but we will allow you to ease you for the calculation of the cost. There was a question in the chat about commercialization of this tool. So this is also the aim of SOLSTICE project. We will clarify that in the coming 2 years. At the moment, we are doing this thanks to the European funding, and the aim also at the end of the project is to see how this tool can become live and how it should be provided, and to who and how financially we can sustain it. So we don't have the answer at the moment. From the geographical question, we said that there is no, in all Europe is acceptable for us, because SOLSTICE focuses on the EU footprint. There is a focus though on the 4 regions of SOLSTICE. So of course we'll be happy to have use cases. And it's important to us that we represent the needs of the 4 territories of SOLSTICE. So being Prato, Grenoble, Catalonia, and Berlin. But we do not restrict ourselves to these 4 regions, and we also are open to other regions.
And outside of the EU?
Outside of the EU needs to be discussed, because that's not the perimeter of the project. So I think that might not be the priority at the moment. Oh, there is a question about including the LCA. So yes, we are aware that a whole impact assessment would also consider LCA. So actually, in the SOLSTICE project, this task is carried by another partner who is doing, they're doing this calculation on another specific tool. As you know, LCA tools are very specific and require specific databases. So at the moment, we aim on aggregating the data. At the very end of the project, we have the objective to compare economical aspects, and carbon aspect or LCA results on specific streams. But we know that an end goal could be that this tool would also include LCA in the simulation on top of the cost simulation, but that's not part of our SOLSTICE perimeter at the moment.
In terms of the pricing and commercialization of the platform, this will have to be determined. I mean, that's part of the project. I mean, the first thing is make sure that it actually solves a problem, and then we can start thinking about who would pay for it and so on. I mean, obviously, it needs to have some kind of business model attached to it. Is it going to be territories, recyclers? It's not clear at the moment.
Yeah, I see in the chat that there was a question of our relation to PLM platforms. The way I see it is that clearly PLMs are operational tools. I mean, if you use it, it's really an operational support. The tool here has takes another point of view, let's say. It's about you use this tool basically when you want to refine your business model, when you want to think as a team. You've already defined your team for experimentation, and you want to see whether a new flow makes sense within this team. So we're not at all at the same level with the same ambition as a PLM. We say this, it's really a simulation engine for decision making.
So Mario has a comment. Thank you. So yeah, on the first point, the idea of simulating potential quantities is really what we're trying to do, using a mix of statistical approach basically and real data, and yeah, in terms of price fixing, I think it's a bit out of the scope, but at some point, if a lot of people are using it, and if we can see, if we can aggregate basically how much a ton is priced on each by different people, we can aggregate it into maybe some kind of average price that could be interesting for everyone involved.
Yes, so I see the comments from Sarah from Berlin. Yeah, we looked at the repair topic. We need to talk, I mean, in an individual meeting to see how we can address your need with this tool, because this would need a little modification, let's say, on maybe one use case. So let's talk on it individually. Well, thank you. Then I think we are running out of questions, and we are now closer to the end of this meeting. So thanks a lot for all the SOLSTICE partners who helped us build this picture. I'm talking specifically about the SOLSTICE territories, the SOLSTICE recyclers and sorters who are part of the project and who gave us precious inputs about their needs. So we tried to incorporate all this as much as possible in the vision for this tool. So thanks a lot for all the Solstice partner, and thanks to all of you for attending this webinar. We are really pleased to have feedbacks, because that's what matters at the moment in the development. Don't hesitate to reach to us for questions or interest in this tool. So now we hope to have a really concrete use case to deploy with some of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.